Picture this. Michael Phelps, the most successful Olympic athlete in all of human history, 39 world records, 28 Olympic medals, 23 of which are gold, and now he steps up to the starting block and prepares himself for the next race. Beside him, Bob Bowman, his coach through all 5 Olympic Games. Now Bob whispers something into Michael's ear, but we can't quite make out what it is. Maybe it's a word of encouragement or a little bit of motivation or a last-minute tactical adjustment. Michael leans back toward Bob, never breaking his gaze off of the water, remaining completely focused, and he says, "Thanks, Coach. But on my way here this morning, I Googled how to swim faster and I watched a couple of YouTube videos, so I think I've got this." I know, it's ridiculous, right? That would never happen, of course. Except that's exactly the approach that the majority of our executives take toward their leadership in business every day. There they are, making billion-dollar decisions, governing thousands of people's livelihoods, with no coach in sight. That is not a gap. That is a leadership crisis. All right? We know humans in every domain perform better with good coaching, and that is not different in business. And executives are the Olympic athletes of the business world. Olympians are coached 90% of the time so that they can perform at the highest level 10% of the time. But for executives, it's exactly the opposite. They're performing at the highest level 90% of the time, and they're being coached, if at all, less than 10%. And what's at stake when an Olympian performs and competes? National pride? A medal? 15 minutes of fame? But what about that executive? A CEO of a global company has a bad day and you can wipe $10 million off the bottom line. 1,000 families lose their primary source of income. Or the stock price drops 4% and tens of thousands of investors have to carry that cost. You see, 94% of executives who tried coaching said that they would do it again. 86% of all executive coaching results in a positive ROI. The average ROI we know now is 788% and exceeds 900x in some cases. And yet, the majority of our executives are facing that Olympic level pressure every day all alone. Quick question. What do you call an Olympic athlete that says they don't need a coach? Anyone? Retired. Yeah. All right, so I think there's 2 things going on here that we really need to pay attention to. And the first one is that a good deal of executives don't understand what coaching is. My good friend Howard is one of them. He's like CEO of a global healthcare company. And for the 30 years of his executive tenure, he told me, he says, I never thought of executive coaching as anything other than remedial, like a sign of weakness or a punishment for bad behavior or poor performance. It wasn't until he resigned and then he did his executive coaching certification that he realized that executive coaching is actually a critical performance differentiator. You see, you don't get coaching because you're broken and need to be fixed. That's therapy. That is not my job. You get coaching because you're talented and you think you might be a world-class competitor in your domain. And yet, the majority of executives still fail to make that distinction. An executive who says they don't need coaching is either unaware of what coaching is, or they're just too lazy to develop in their craft, and either way, they are leaving profitability and shareholder value on the table as a result. They're not the only ones they are letting down. So, quick question. What do you call an executive that says they don't need a coach? Remedial. I know. Right, so overconfident executives is number one. Second thing I think that's going on here is that the coaching industry is promoting a kind of coaching that executives just don't need. All right, if you look on LinkedIn right now, you'll find 386,000 people claiming the title executive coach, which is almost as many people as claim the title influencer, except as an executive coach, I've never been offered free protein shakes or a vacation. There's just no agreed upon definition of what the executive coach title actually means. And there's no governing body that's ensuring that people who use that title are even remotely prepared for the high-pressure, high-stakes world of C-suite coaching. And as a result, executives are kind of, left with a coin toss. Maybe they look for a coach. Maybe they find a good one. But the truth is that most aren't looking at all. And those that do very often find themselves in the company of somebody who's just not ready for that job. I have to tell you about Jack. Jack is the CEO of a billion-dollar company, and he told me about his first experience with an executive coach. Not me, by the way. So he's like, I know. So he calls this guy in. The conversation went something like this, okay? Coach, what would you like to work on today? Jack. Well, one of my board members is bypassing me and conspiring with my CFO to sabotage an acquisition I've been working on. Okay, and what have you tried? Well, I tried a couple of emails, phone calls. I actually got into a debate with the CFO in front of the board of directors last week, which probably wasn't very helpful. Okay, and what haven't you tried? Well, I guess I haven't tried real violence. I'm just kidding. I haven't tried firing the CFO, though I did think about it. Fact is, she's really good at her job. I don't want to lose her talent. I just need her to back off on this one project. Okay, and what else? And what else what? And what else haven't you tried? Well, if I knew what I hadn't tried, I would try it, and I wouldn't be calling a coach. Aren't you supposed to give me ideas? No. My job as an executive coach is to ask you provocative questions to help you to realize that the information and insights you need to solve your own problems have been inside you the whole time. I'm not allowed to give you advice. That's against my code of ethics. Right. Well, look, not to be rude, but I didn't earn my way into this chair by being unsure of myself or not thinking through all of my options. I don't think this is going to work. And just like that, Jack was immunized against executive coaching by a well-intentioned coach whose credentialing organization taught him that non-advisory coaching is the very definition of coaching. This is not Jack's failure. This is the failure of an industry that promotes one-size-fits-all modalities. Non-advisory coaching isn't coaching. It's a kind of coaching. This is how this started, right? So the largest coaching credentialing organization in the world started a rumor a little while ago that non-advisory coaching is the gold standard in coaching. Huh? But gold for whom exactly? Huh? I mean, I get it, right? If you're a non-advisory coach, that relieves you of the responsibility to be competent in your client's domain of competition. And if you can bring to market a credential based on the idea that anyone can coach anyone else in anything, well, then the whole world is your market. And then the rest of the world is your client's market. It's actually a really, really great business plan. So I suppose from that perspective, yeah, non-advisory coaching is gold for the coaches and their credentialing organizations. Not so much for the Olympic level executives that need a different kind of coach. Let's go back to our swimmer, okay? Michael Phelps didn't earn 23 gold medals through a journey of self-discovery and guided insight. And Bob Bowman didn't just ask deep questions. No, he broke down every stroke. He optimized every turn. And he motivated Michael to push past his limits time and time again. Michael described Bob as a master tactician who had formulas and methods that blended the disciplines of a motivator and a teacher. I suppose it's probably best for the sport of swimming overall that Bob didn't just hold space for Michael to figure out how to fix his butterfly stroke. That's what our executives need. Tailored, strategic, tactical. They don't just need someone to ask questions, they need someone to come with possible solutions who will challenge their assumptions and provide real tactical guidance. I have to tell you this story. A little while ago, I was coaching a CEO of a company of about 40,000 employees, and he was managing an acquisition of another company of about 6,000 employees. It was closing week on the acquisition, so it was a really big stress time, right? So I walked into his office for our coaching session. I put my laptop down, and he said, no laptop today, Corrie, no notes. So I closed it up, I put it away, and I sat down, and I said, well, what's going on? He said, look, I don't know how to tell you this, but my wife's found out I've been having an affair, and she's asked me for a divorce. I love my wife. I don't want a divorce. I also love my girlfriend, and it's confusing, and it's emotional, and it's chaotic, and I'm finding it hard to focus. So I said, okay, well, have you talked to a therapist about this? He said, yeah, look, my therapist she's really great. My therapist is great, but she wants to help me to understand why I had the affair, and that's not what I need right now. I said, well, what do you need right now? He said, I've got 46,000 families who are counting on my leadership, and I'm reading merger contracts with a broken heart through a veil of tears, and I'm pretty sure I'm screwing this up. I just don't know how badly. My therapist doesn't have tools for that. You're my coach. What have you got? What am I supposed to say? Right? I'm sorry, buddy, you're getting a bit personal now. This is outside of my remit. No. My Olympic executive faced an Olympic problem. He didn't need me to ask probing questions. He needed an Olympic coach. We built a tactical playbook for him that day that would allow him to manage significant and strong emotional triggers and reactions and return to focus rapidly so that his people would benefit from the best of his expertise in spite of what was going on in his head. That's good coaching. That's executive coaching. It's a blend of business acumen and psychological insight and unwavering support. Let me tell you why this matters. We all know that culture starts at the top, right? Right. Okay, so a leader gets coached, their communication goes up, their collaboration goes up, decision-making quality goes up, which drives employee engagement and motivation, which then drives productivity and performance, and then profits are a byproduct of all of those things, okay? So what if a coach could have that level of impact, not just on a leader, but on an organization and on an industry? Bill Campbell was affectionately known as the $1 trillion coach. As the executive coach to Eric Schmidt, Larry Page, and Sundar Pichai, all three of the CEOs of Google, Bill Campbell had exactly that impact. Oh man, he had an awesome way of fostering trust and building collaboration. He could navigate conflict with grace and love, the kinds that it's just so rare to see in leadership. And he drove the team at Google not toward consensus, but toward making the right decisions. It was decisive leadership that drove that company forward. Bill Campbell was to technology what Bob Bowman was to swimming. And yet the current state of play in executive coaching worldwide is still radically unacceptable. Non-advisory coaching isn't coaching. It is a kind of coaching that very quickly reaches its limits in the executive office, robbing executives of their highest potential, their companies of their best performance, and their shareholders of their maximum profits. If you're a leader, don't settle for mediocrity. Demand a coach that will challenge you, question your assumptions, and push you toward your Olympic-level performance. Sure, you might have been born talented enough to break a world record in your industry someday, but I guarantee you, without a good coach, you will never find out. And if you call yourself an executive coach, it's time to step up. Stop asking questions, start adding value, be bold, build your skills, and provide that level of tactical guidance that transforms lives and companies and industries. You know, Michael Phelps once said of Bob Bowman, he didn't just make me a better swimmer, he made me a better person. And Eric Schmidt says something very, very similar about Bill Campbell. And isn't that what we want for our leaders, that they would excel, not just in their roles for our sakes as employees and investors, but for themselves as human beings? Every Olympic athlete has a coach, and no Olympic coach is asking their athlete, and what exercises do you think you should try today? No. It is the same high-performance, top-of-domain relationship that is required at the executive level. And when an executive asks their coach, and what can we try today? It is the coach's ethical responsibility to be competently prepared with a recommendation and to offer it. Executive leadership isn't a solo sport. It is an Olympic sport with massive consequences. So if your executive coach is just asking questions, you have the wrong coach. And if your executive refuses to be coached, you have the wrong executive.